GraphCMS Talks. Today, we're talking with Moritz from Netguru about the role of agencies in the digital transformation of the banking industry. Moritz, I'm really excited to talk about this topic today, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Netguru and the work you guys do there.
Hey, Emily. Hello, audience. Thanks for having me, Emily. I'm Moritz Spangenberg. Nice to meet you guys. I hold a position as a client partner at Netguru. Briefly, what does Netguru do? We are a software development, or you could say full stack tech consulting company that does product design and software development. And yeah, a happy partner of GraphCMS. So nice to see you again here, Emily, on this occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. So first question is, what role do agencies play in helping the banking industry digitize?
Yeah, that's a good question, Emily. I think the role is they're playing at least two big roles, right? So I think one major role for agencies is to help banks, or especially the incumbents in the industry, to point into new directions. So basically to help igniting innovation, which should be part of the digital transformation, right? So innovation, I think, is a big part of driving any digital transformation. So really coming up with new ideas, new products or services, finding new answer to big, hairy problems that may also disrupt the status quo. So I believe it is always more difficult for incumbent industry players, especially in the financial service industry, to focus on very new things since they are successful with a couple of things that they're doing in their legacy and in their current business and business models.
Yeah.
So I think it is very natural if you are a large industry incumbent that you may not feel a big push or a big need to always do everything different tomorrow. That's also one of the reasons maybe one of the other companies is still lagging behind a little bit with regards to digital transformation. But I guess this does change a lot. It did change a lot. I think we've all seen during the pandemic that some of the changes have been accelerated, which I believe is a good thing, right? Because it has served as an additional fuel for some to accelerate the digital transformation. And so I think, therefore, the role of agencies, of smaller players, of startups, but also then, of course, agencies, is to partner with the companies in the financial sector, with the bigger ones, because they have an easier time focusing on any novel, disruptive ideas. So that's basically the first role that I see is relevant. I think the second, most important role is basically to serve for those companies, right? So basically in the role of, you could say, an executioner, right? Mm-hmm. So to support basically the execution of the digital transformation.
Yeah.
So basically the role of many agencies is to do a job that, let's say, that cannot be done by, let's say, a bank, right? So anything that cannot be done. What could it be, right? So what jobs would they not be able to fulfill? We all know that not every company always has all the capabilities or capacities available that are needed to execute on their ideas and plans. That means that's mostly the place where any product or service companies from smaller size agencies come into play, because they can offer something that they cannot offer, right? So oftentimes it may also make sense to make your own investment in new technology, product or service, because it may not make sense because it's too far from your core business, right? So that's maybe the place where a company will turn to an agency because it's not their core business. They don't have the capabilities or services available to invest into that specific thing, which is okay, and that's what one of the roles of the agencies basically is, to help those, for example, large banks, helping with that. In the end, I guess it's a make or buy decision oftentimes, right? So am I making it myself because it's around my core business, or am I basically buying the service because it's not my core business, and I'm happy to rely on capable partner, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
That was a long answer. Wow, sorry,
No, that was
Emily.
perfect. I'm happy to hear it because, I think you really went into depth on especially the point about where a company's core competency lies. A banking industry or a banking player doesn't want to spend time trying to build an app that's not what their best resources are used for. And so definitely makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. Going off
yeah.
of that, and you touched on this a little bit, what are some of the biggest challenges to digital transformation in the banking industry?
Mm. Yeah, very valid question. I think there are obviously many challenges to that. One challenge that I actually where I actually learned a lot about during the last year, during this pandemic year, 2020, which is obviously still not over now, and now that we have 2021, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But we have learned a lot about is basically knowing the target. So I think knowing the target for many players in that industry is still one of the biggest challenges. So what I mean with knowing the target, so I think especially in the financial service industry, as we do see many disruptors, many fintech startups and scale-ups disrupting the space there, I need to formulate a good way where I want to be, how I want to be perceived by my customers, what role do I want to play in the ecosystem, basically formulate where my North Star basically is, right? So I think the first challenge really is, in my view, formulating a sound strategy. What role am I playing, not now, but in the future, in that ecosystem, which is getting more and more disrupted as we do see it in the last years. So I think as a big bank, as a big player in the industry, you will need to pick your battlefield and really choose if you want to compete, let's say, with this one new fintech startup that provides, let's say, a better customer experience to your SME size customers than you do. Or maybe you want to choose partnering with that startup, or even doing M&A and maybe acquiring them. So basically, but formulating that sound strategy, I think one of the biggest challenges on my way to a digital transformation, or my way in winning in the new space. And obviously, I mean, what I've also seen, what we all have seen, I guess, is that not only formulating such a strategy and knowing the target, but also making sure that the target and the strategy that you formulate is adaptable, right? So I have seen from our partners and clients many companies that had a lot of issues and challenges in basically adapting their strategy. So many companies do focus, for good reasons, on long-term strategy, which makes it hard for them to do quick changes and to change a strategy quickly. And that's more important than ever, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think knowing the target really is one of the main challenges, basically, that has to be overcome. And I guess the second challenge is, how do you get there, right? So how do you, if you formulated that new North Star and adaptable strategy of yours, pick your battlefield, basically then decide how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
And I guess it's also not a secret that many incumbents in the financial service industry are looking at increased complexity, managing their legacy systems and managing their IT systems, which is not always state of the art anymore. And of course, most of the technology used by the incumbents does have its purpose. It is complex, but it has its purpose because it is for very good reasons. We've seen that through the downfall of Wirecard and other instances, is for good reason a highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
But I guess this should not stop you from revisiting your digital readiness. So I think to sum up, the second most important or most relevant challenge I see is to basically overcome the challenges that you have with regards to your legacy systems, basically, in order to achieve or to make progress on your digital transformation roadmap.
Absolutely. And kind of going off of that a little bit, moving into more of like tech stack and legacy, what are some of the advantages of moving away from those homebrew solutions or legacy solutions to more commercial or software as a service solutions?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I guess the first and foremost, and maybe also most obvious benefit is if you're choosing to go for a ready-made solution, out of the box solution, that software as a service product, is that you don't have to take care of updating the technology, of updating the product and services,
Yeah.
which also does have obvious benefits when it comes to cost, or if you want to scale with a product or service, want to roll it out. So you don't have to take care about the updates, you don't have to care about maybe, and you can also prosper basically from the innovation path that your partner that you choose for the product
Yeah.
is basically having, right? So you don't have to take care about new features and so on. If that's a good product, then you will prosper from basically that innovation partner. So I think that that's one of the advantages that I do see for SaaS software. And I guess in today's ecosystems, in today's financial services industry, it does also, it will be more important to be ready to adapt to any new technologies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the obvious disadvantage also would be, it depends on what you want to do, right? Where you're looking at with regards to your product or service. The obvious disadvantages may be in choosing an out-of-the-box ready-made solution, is that if this product or service does touch your core business, you may want to consider this obviously can be used by any of your competitors as well. So I guess it will be difficult to build a competitive advantage with a product that everybody can use. But if that product or the service is not of your top strategic priorities, and other can do it better than you, then I think I'm always a big fan of basically buying or using a service that's not my core business, because then I believe others can do it better than I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we talk a lot about here at GraphCMS, is just the idea of where the role of best of breed companies come in, because they can do that core service a little bit better than a company that maybe does something else but needs that service to be done. They really kind of fit that niche a little bit better than trying to, have every company build everything on their own, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's also a good example, for example, how also GraphCMS and other products and services can now integrate into banks, right? So
Yeah.
the whole movement that we are seeing with regards to making more use of APIs obviously does enable this, right? So even in general, those microservices, right, that they allow, as we see, allow banks and their software to better rapidly communicate with other layers of the system, but also to basically make use of other tech stacks throughout the networks in a more rigid and seamless way. And I think GraphCMS is also a great example, basically, where you can make use of that technology. And that's where we see many companies also moving nowadays. So opening up basically their ecosystem, making use of APIs, making use of an open banking strategy, and basically integrating throughout their layers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, kind of transferring a little bit, or moving on a little bit to digital content. So, how does a company's digital content play a role in establishing trust and loyalty, especially when in-person interactions are becoming more limited?
Yeah, you're totally right. We have all seen that the personal interactions have become more limited, personally speaking, but also from my professional experience. I do have strong beliefs that many industry, especially incumbents, still do underestimate the importance of digital content, right? So I believe if you're able to produce and distribute content in a good way, and good way means then basically the channel, which is nowadays very much digital, that you will have a very, very great chances in building up trust and loyalty with your customers. I think what we've seen through the pandemic is that that's importance of digital channels did get more important. For example, since we're talking about financial services and banking, it's basically due to the pure fact that many of the physical branches just had to be closed down, right? So you wouldn't be able to walk to your trusted bank office at the physical branch anymore, or for good reasons you did not want to leave the house because obviously it was not a good choice maybe to queue up at a very full office there and get exposed to danger of COVID-19. So more and more customers choose and chose basically digital interaction. And I think that was also a great moment where many, and still is a great moment, where many companies had the opportunity, or still have the opportunity, to collect and win over new clients. So I think there was I've seen a figure I think during the middle of last year that said that every fourth customer did consider to change his trusted brand where he does do purchases, because it was just at current time where many new choices have been made and where trust and loyalty played a big role. And I guess content does play a big role in doing so. So my experience, especially from since I'm also as a client partner working in sales and business development heavily, I'm also heavily working together with our marketing teams. And one of our main concerns and also objectives is to understand our clients, first of all, right? So understanding really what is my target market, what are my ideal customer profiles, who I'm looking at, and then building content for those target groups. And from my experience working on that, it is a very powerful weapon if you are able to build content, build valid content for your target group. And of course, if you are able to distribute that content in a good, seamless digital way using digital channels, then you have to ask questions around the channel fit. And ideally you can use all the channels that are needed. So depending on who you're looking at, it can be, I guess, Facebook, it can be Instagram, it can be LinkedIn or TikTok, or maybe new platforms such as Clubhouse. Clubhouse nowadays. Are you in Clubhouse yet, Emily, on the new platform?
Not quite yet, but it's been a big discussion here of what we should do with Clubhouse. And so I'm curious to see what comes. It'll be very interesting to see all of the innovation that comes out of a new platform.
Yeah. I've not found a strategy yet either, but I'm also started discussions with my marketing team that we also thought about how to basically make use of that platform, but we've not figured it out yet. Maybe we should have our next talk there, Emily.
Yeah, maybe that sounds like a great idea. Okay, so going into our last question, what kind of considerations do agencies make when deciding on what specific tech stack to implement when working with customers in the financial or banking industries?
Yeah, what kind of tech stack? I mean, that's a big and complicated question, right? So, I mean, in general, unfortunately, the choice of the tech stack is very much dependent on where the specific company is a customer, where the bank currently is, right? So, as we said, many of them are looking at a lot of legacy systems, which now are, some are getting replaced, and some are, let's say, getting made digital ready, so to say, right? So, the topic digital readiness, how can I evolve with any legacy systems that I have, or how can I replace them or make them ready to work with other systems. So the first question, I guess, everybody would need to answer is where am I currently with regards to my IT environment? And depending on that, I can choose a tech stack that I want to work with. And I guess having a flexible approach. So if I'm able to work with APIs, I should strongly consider this in order to, have faster time to market if it is with content distribution, as we talked about content recently, or if it is basically with regards to getting my products to the market quicker. So I mean, I guess we're also we close the loop in our discussion, because during the beginning we talked about strategies and what's nowadays what are nowadays the challenges in that industry, where I said, well, it's basically knowing the North Star, but also coming up with an adaptable strategy. And I think that's where we're closing the loop, right? So we also need to make your IT strategy and also your IT environment adaptable quickly. So you cannot consider anymore to make millions of investments into any on-premise systems which are not flexible, which are not adaptable, and which are not able to adapt to your environment and to the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Moritz, it was so great talking to you, and it was great hearing all of your thoughts on these topics. Do you have any final thoughts on this issue?
Oh, well, no, thanks for having me, Emily. And then maybe we can have our next talk then on the next platform. Yeah, I mean, final thoughts. I think it's currently a very interesting time, and the fintech financial service industry is a very interesting place to be in. Many new opportunities are opening up. Innovation is happening. So I mean, my advice to everyone in that space is, as we discussed about, is to try to be as innovative as you can. Take small steps if you can do them. Try to come up with a flexible approach, adaptable strategy, and take your steps. That's basically it from my side, Emily.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for taking this time and having this great discussion. It was really informative and interesting, and I'm looking forward to our next talk on maybe Clubhouse.
Yes, it was my pleasure, Emily. Have a good time. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.